In this landscape photography case study, I'm going to be capturing Lake Bled in the background here. It's currently 10 to 7 in the morning. In about 8 minutes time, the sun should rise. Now today's a little bit different because we have cloud coverage over there on the right hand side of the frame. You may be able to see that it's glowing a little bit red, but there is clouds. So we're not going to get those same light beams that pass through the scene. Hopefully we will get a little bit of clearance as it comes up in maybe 30 minutes time, but the results of this are going to be quite different to the other sunrises that we've been shooting and sunsets too. If you don't get to see the sun pass over the horizon, you miss all of that really soft natural morning light. I have my camera set up on a tripod here and I'm going pretty wide. Let me see what I'm shooting at. About 28 millimeters. And that's allowing me to capture the whole ring of the lake, as well as the mountains in the background, the clouds in the sky and the trees in the foreground. Because the clouds are quite interesting today, my horizon placement differs a little bit to how I might shoot it if they weren't there. I have the horizon about 60% of the way up the frame and the rest is mountains and clouds. It adds for a really nice texture and contrast to the scene below, and these clouds are also reflecting on the lake, which makes for a more visually interesting image. Of course, I'm using manual focus here because it allows me to set the focus once and not have to worry about the scene trying to refocus, which is obviously a problem in low light. I'm also using my intervalometer as a remote, so I can just press this button and I don't get any camera shake from pressing the shutter release button. I'm shooting in aperture priority mode at f8 for a deep depth of field and a sharp image. And I'm also underexposing my photo by about 1 1/3 stops. This is mostly just me correcting my camera that has gotten the exposure a little bit too wrong here, so I'm recovering some of the highlights in the scene. The ISO is set to 250, but this is likely going to change as the sun rises. It will very soon, probably within the next 10 or 15 minutes, go down to 100, the base ISO, to keep that image quality. And then the only thing that will start to change is going to be the shutter speed, as that's going to speed up and speed up and speed up as we get more natural light available in this scene. We have just a few minutes now until the sun rises over here on the right hand side of the frame in the east. Now, the glow that's over there is red, and I'm going to try and capture that as much as possible, but I don't want to change my composition. So what I'm hoping for is for it to pass through and over to these clouds in the background. Clouds are great in landscape composition, but too many clouds will start to block out the light. So you're trying to find the right balance here. And at the moment, we've just got a few too many. I think some of my favorite photos from the shoot so far were immediately after we arrived here. I set my camera up and we had really low light, but we also had street lights and building lights all the way around the lake that was glowing and reflecting onto the lake. I think that made for a very visually stunning image, as well as the reflections from these gaps in the cloud down onto the lake. So we're using reflections here as well. I'm not using any particular compositional tools here. There's no rule of thirds, there's no golden triangle. But what I will say is that the image is very well balanced. We have more of the mountains on the left-hand side of the frame, which is obviously a stronger weight over there. But then we have more of the trees on the right-hand side of the frame, which is a stronger weight there. And pretty much right in the middle at that pivot point, we have an island with a church in it. I might even set that perfectly centered to try and test that balance too. The image is very well balanced. It's still a very interesting image because we do have what seems like a leading line coming to the left-hand side of the frame here, and it goes around the back of the lake and then back round again and loops back to the island. So it leads you into the scene, and that definitely helps to make a viewer look at an image for longer. Right now, there's very little that I would change about the composition of this scene. I have tested different focal lengths, focusing on the island as a main subject and using some symmetry and some reflections in that frame. However, I do think that this 28mm wide angle is going to be the best shot that I can get from this one single vantage point. We've climbed up through sunrise to this little peak and this viewpoint out over the lake, and there's really very little room to move left and right to get a different angle of this scene. So I think this is going to be where I'm going to continue to leave my tripod, and we're just going to shoot as the sun rises for the next hour or so. And with that in mind, let's take some photos. Because the sun has now started to pass the horizon and we're not getting any of this orange glow in the background, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from 28mm to 24 and adjust the composition a little bit. So now the island is right bang in the center of the image, and we have some more of this glow on the right hand side. So hopefully as this light comes up and these clouds start to become a little bit more illuminated, We're going to get more detail on the scene, and we do have a few too many trees down here, which I'm not as keen on, so I might adjust the horizon placement a little bit too, and experiment with having a lower horizon in the frame, because the trees are nowhere near as interesting as the clouds are in the sky. And frankly, we've been here for over a week now and we haven't had any interesting clouds, so I'm really pleased to see them. The sun came up about 10 minutes ago now, and we still don't have much of this colour that's on the right hand side of the frame in the background, and by the looks of things it's probably not going to come through all that strongly. We do have a little slither, which is nice, but what might happen is I'll process this into black and white, because we do have that texture in the sky that looks really good in black and white. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fly my drone, and I'm going to try and get a different angle from over to the left hand side of the frame, focusing on the church with the sunrise in the background, so we get the colour of the church and the reflection and the lake. The sun has just started to peek through the clouds over here, and as a result we're starting to see some of the colour come through in the background as the clouds clear away. We've got some blue in the sky as well, and some very faint orange, which is adding colour and texture to the scene. The sun has been up for about 35 minutes now, so it's obviously a lot higher in the sky than it was. But this is a point where, as we're starting to see it, the scene is going to change very quickly. And that's why you want to be at your camera for at least an hour after the sun rises, because the shots that you're going to capture in that hour are going to be very different to the shots that you capture immediately after the sun rises. The light is still very soft, and we're actually getting some great reflections down on the lake here now. So I'm going to continue to shoot, and you can see the results. I'll wrap up this video by saying that as the light's changing, so should your composition. The light massively affects what you're shooting. I want to incorporate as much of this as I can into the scene, so I'm going to turn my camera slightly to the right. We also notice that the clouds are changing in colour, so they become more of a priority. So I switch from a lower focus to a higher focus. I have a lower horizon so we can have more focus on those clouds. As your scene does change, be ready to adapt and adjust your composition too. Thanks for watching. That's sunrise at Lake Bled.